you? Prophesy to us. And there Jesus being mercilessly beaten and spit upon. The Bible also declares in the other Gospels that they took hold of his beard and they pulled it out of his face. Prophesy. And he just stood there. The Bible tells us that Jesus did not turn his face from those who spit upon him. He took the beating. He was innocent.
You're listening to A Daily Walk as Pastor John Randall describes Jesus' road to the cross. Don't go away. There's more to come. You can hear this message from Mark's Gospel again online at adailywalk.org or purchase the CD for $5 right there at our website as well. Again, we're at adailywalk.org. You can also call us at 877-242-0828. Maybe it's been a while since you picked up the phone or emailed us. You know, we'd like to hear from you today. Our email address is adailywalk@gmail.com. And yes, Pastor John reads those emails. So tell him where you listen and include those prayer requests as well. Again, we're at adailywalk@gmail.com. Our phone number, once again, 877-242-0828. Our featured resource right now is a wonderful book designed to encourage homeschooling parents. It's titled Precious and Pleasant Riches. Author Christy Banacci encouraged the homeschooling parent in their high and holy calling. It's just $10 at adailywalk.org or order it by phone at 877-242-0828. And thank you for your generous support. It allows us to bring God's Word to the radio and the internet every day. We're constantly receiving wonderful testimonies of people coming to Christ or growing in their relationship with the Lord. And you are helping to make that possible through your support. You can donate online at adailywalk.org or call 877-242-0828. As we return to Mark 14, Pastor John points out Peter's denial.
In verse 66, as Peter was, interestingly, being led in the court, one of the servant girls of the high priest came, and she saw she looked at him, and she said, "You also, Jesus of Nazareth." He denied it, saying, "I neither know nor understand what you're saying." And he went out of the porch, and the rooster crowed. And a servant girl saw him again. The same girl, the servant girl saw him again, and began to say to those who stood by, "Hey, this is one of them." But he denied it again. And a little later, those who stood by said to Peter again, "Surely you are one of them. You're a Galilean, and your speech shows it." He began to curse and swear, "I do not know this man of whom you speak." The second time the rooster crowed. Then Peter called to mind the word that Jesus had said to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And when he thought about it, he wept.
Peter would deny the Lord on this day, but that's not the end of the story. God would forgive and restore him, and he can do the same for us after we fail. That's all for now, but come back tomorrow when Pastor John Randall will continue following Jesus on the road to the cross. That's here on A Daily Walk. A Daily Walk with John Randall is presented by Calvary Southwest. John Randall with A Daily Walk here on KMIT. I'm Jared. We're pushing the 6 o'clock hour, and Earl Luther is going to kick it off with Running to Beat Family Life today, also on the way within the hour. And at the top of the 7 o'clock hour is Jim Daly with Focus on the Family. Rick Lawrence, Skip Benson, Gregory, and John MacArthur are also on the way, so stick around for that and more. You're listening to The Light.
It's sports season. You know what I'm talking about. Football, soccer, cross country. But what happens when an injury has you sitting on the sidelines? The most common injuries, from a sprain to a fracture, are generally caused by overtraining, poor technique, not wearing proper gear, and skipping the warm-up and cool-down. Whether or not you think that pulled muscle or knee pain is severe enough to sit out for a few days, it's best to err on the side of caution. Many sports injuries can be treated at home with the Bryce method: rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Seek medical care if the pain and swelling continue longer than a week, or if the injury understand what the Apostle Paul says here about spiritual warfare. I want our listeners to know that we are making this entire series available to you. The series is entitled Between Heaven and Earth. It's a series of messages on the book of Ephesians. For a gift of any amount that can be yours, here's what you do. Go to rtwoffer.com or call us at 1-888-218-9337. The name of the series, Between Heaven and Earth. You can have it in permanent form so that you can listen to it again and again. But now, let us take that quick tour through the last part of Ephesians chapter 6. It's good news. It's
Reverend McLeod, and he spoke on occultism and listed about 100 different ways that people get into the occult. And then we gave an invitation, and later on we counseled about 60 people who came forward because they had been involved in some level of occult activity, and 45 different kinds of occultism was revealed as people shared in our counseling session. Everything from Satan worship to levitation to the reading of horoscopes to palm reading, all of these ways that Satan would like to ensnare people. Many people do these things not recognizing. They say, well, you know, I do it innocently. One person said, well, I went to a palm reader, but she assured me that she was a Christian. Do you see the deception out there? And what we need to recognize is that that's the way Satan wages battle. He promises two things. First of all, hidden knowledge that God has not seen fit to reveal. You come to me, and I will tell you your fortune. I will play with that Ouija board that will give you some guidance. And secondly, healing, he promises. And so you have people being healed because of crystals and healing techniques that are not based on science, but based on occultism. And Satan will heal as many people as he can if he can keep you bound and deceived. Now, his primary strategy is to make sin look good to us. He doesn't want us to fear sin, because he knows that if we don't fear it, we'll get involved in it, and that's his game. That's his territory. And so he takes ideas that are his, and he puts these ideas in our minds, and we think they are our own. You see, because Satan is hideous. If he came down the aisle today and revealed himself as this horrible, awful being, we'd all be terrified. So in order to make sure that we aren't afraid of him, what he does is he comes in different disguises. He comes under different labels, but he comes to deceive and to ensnare. So first of all, I've emphasized the fact that there is a spiritual world out there. Believe me, there is. And secondly, we wrestle. There is a cosmic battle. In fact, it is important for you to know that everybody to whom I'm speaking today is involved in the battle. You say, oh, no, I'm not, because possibly you have very little to do with religion. Well, you know, the answer is you are involved, and I need to say this lovingly, but without even knowing it, you have taken the wrong side. Because the Bible says there are two kingdoms. There is the kingdom of God, there is the kingdom of Satan, and there is also the kingdom of God. And there are only two spheres. There are only two spheres. So everybody's involved. And the battle is cosmic. And it's not just individual. It is a battle, Paul says, in the heavenlies with rulers and authorities and the powers of darkness. The whole universe is really involved, in a sense, in the battle. And the whole universe is in civil war. Now the question is, of course, how do we stand? And the Apostle Paul here 4 times says, stand, stand, stand. He's talking to believers. How do we stand against Satan's assaults? In the early part of Ephesians, he talked about the fact that we are seated with Jesus Christ in the heavenlies. If you remember back that far in Ephesians 2, he says that legally we are with Jesus in heaven already. We are seated. When you get to chapter 4, he says, not only are we seated, but we have to now walk. We sit, and then we walk. Walk worthily of who we really are as belonging to Jesus. And now he tells us to stand. And what I'd like to do is to suggest to you that using the imagery of standing, most people who stand have 2 feet. Some may not be able to use their feet, and that's fine. This message is really metaphoric. What you need to do so that you're not slipping on ice, so that you're not slipping and falling, so that Satan doesn't have you down and literally beating you emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually, how do we stand against him? One foot has to be planted in the soil of Christian character. The soil of Christian character.
Let's look at the pieces of armor and we'll see how this works out. You know, some people think that the armor is just something that you can just put on and then when you don't need it, you take it off. Some people think, well, it's only for those who are involved in, quote, spiritual warfare. But everyone, every believer needs this armor, every single one. And it's basically our walk with God. It's Christian character. Let's look at the text very quickly. First of all, he says, put on, therefore, verse 14, stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist. The belt of truth. Now God's word is truth. The Bible is truth. And Satan, Jesus says, is a liar, and he is the father of lies. It's been said many times, the only time you can believe him is when he says, I am lying. He is the author of lies, and he loves deception. And what we must do is be people of integrity. We have to be people of truth. You know, there are many people who fall into all kinds of grievous sins, and they stay there because they refuse to become honest with God. They refuse integrity, and therefore they hide, and they use as a cover the lies and the deceptions of the human heart. And as a result of that, Satan has his workshop, and he holds them bound. If there's anything that the devil hates, it is truth. So truthfulness, that's one way that we ward off his attacks. And he no longer can easily come through our armor because we are so honest, we are so truthful, we are so open to that which is true that there's no place, if I might use the imagery, there's no place for him to hide. Well, let's look at a second quality, and that is righteousness. It says, having on the breastplate of righteousness. Righteousness. Now, when we think of that word righteousness, we immediately think of Jesus Christ's righteousness, which is given to us through faith and without which we cannot come into God's presence and be accepted, the righteousness of Christ. But it is also the accepting of righteousness as one of the qualities of our lives. It is walking in righteousness. It is accepting the righteousness of Christ. It is receiving that righteousness and believing it and making it our own. And all of us know the way in which we can overcome the accusations of the devil the best is to point to the righteousness of Christ and say that I receive that quality in my life, the righteousness of God. Let's look at the next one. It's peace. And it says, having your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. You see, having received our peace with God, knowing that the barrier between us and God has been lifted, having received the peace of God, we now become ambassadors of peace. We tell others that there's a God who is willing to reconcile us, to forgive us, and to bring us into his presence. And the people who best overcome Satan are the ones who witness to the peace of God and then share the good news with others who do not know that there's a way by which they can come into God's presence and be forgiven and cleansed and received. Let's go on to another. You'll notice it says, taking the shield of faith. It says, verse 16, in addition to all of this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Now, in those days when a battle took place, they would take arrows and dip them in pitch, and then they would light the tips, and then they'd shoot them. You can see the advantage, because then if the arrows landed on something that would burn, a fire would begin. And so Paul uses that imagery. He's thinking of the fact that the devil comes to us with all of these fiery arrows of doubt and unbelief and blasphemy and immorality, and he barrages us, you see. And the question is, how can we ward off the fiery darts of the evil one? The answer is to lift the shield of faith. Now, it doesn't mean the faith by which we are saved. It's important to have that faith, as we shall see in a moment, but it's talking about confidence in the promises of God. The fact that God can be believed. Promises that tell us that greater is he who is in you than those who are in the world. Promises that assure us that Satan has already been crushed.
and we can accept that victory on our own. Promises that assure us that Jesus today is above all principalities and all powers and every name that is named. You see, it's those promises that give us faith.
Isn't it wonderful how the Apostle Paul helps us to understand the nature of spiritual warfare? Satan sends his darts, his arrows against us, and we hold the shield of faith. Satan wants us to doubt God's word, and of course he has many different ways to deceive us. Let me ask you a question. Are you blessed as a result of the ministry of Running to Win? Perhaps you've been listening to this series, which, by the way, is entitled Between Heaven and Earth. You may have missed some of the messages, or maybe you've heard some of the messages and you wish that those messages were heard by others. That's why we're making this series of messages available to you for a gift of any amount. This is a marvelous opportunity for you to help us, even as we help you in your Christian life. As I mentioned, for a gift of any amount, you can ask for the series of messages Between Heaven and Earth, and they can be yours permanently so that you can listen to them again and again. Go to rtwoffer.com. That's rtwoffer.com, or call us at 1-888-218-9337. Ask for the series of messages